to America. I don't think that will work because we know that the cost of these various items are pretty high because of labor costs. But strategically, he wants the mineral rights to come into the United States, and it's no different from modernized colonialization that he's doing.
That is
exactly. We're gonna give him a Peace Prize, a Nobel Peace Prize for that. Great.
I think Trent was next. Trent, go ahead and explain to us why what he's saying is incorrect.
I'm not saying what you're saying is incorrect. It's actually true. And so I'll let you go. I'll be very quick. The Congo has a great deal of lithium and cobalt. So this goes to battery technology for EVs. Same thing with Ukraine. The mineral rights and the rare earths, which China has cornered. A significant portion of that, especially in the refinery, is why we're so beholden to China in this tariff talk. And I will actually agree with Trump, and it's not just Trump. I'll agree with a lot of people who are against China having this much power over minerals because it affects chip production, it affects battery production, solar, AI production, all these things. So that is the reason for going after the Congo mineral rights.
Hey, Scott. Hey, buddy, do a tape check.
Love for Africa all of a sudden trying to help them in their wars. Come on, man.
We never thought that he had love for Africa. But the reality
how you get a Nobel Peace Prize then if he ain't got love Africa?
The reality of it is
this is weird.
Here's the thing. Stop the global contract and let's get money. This is his thing. Nope.
Is he in the Matrix?
Yeah, he's in the Matrix.
Ain't going good.
Take it from him. So now anytime you get AK-47 bullet graze your head like that, it changes the way you look at shit. It changes things. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm about to land, but it changes your perspective on stuff. And I think his perspective has truly changed. Wait a minute. A bullet to the head will do it. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And your perspective
time too. Don't forget the jail time.
It changes your perspective, and then you want some peace in the world, and he's had an opportunity to reconvene with himself and with God, and he feels like God has called him to create global peace, and he said it out of his own mouth. I'm not just saying this shit.
Oh, Trump said it. Oh wow, if Trump said it, it gotta be true. If Trump said it.
Well, what he's doing is what he said he was going to do. He said promises made, promises given. And this is what he keeps saying.
Hey, Jamal, so can those two connect to America, or are they on a travel ban?
Citizens.
Some hoochies. Are you serious? For him, both. Sloan was next. Sloan, you might jump in before I just say this is total bullshit. Go ahead, Sloan.
Yeah, I can't even address what the last guy said. It was just total ignorance, and I just go waste my energy. But I will say that somebody did point. All right, shut up, shit. Go for it.
No, go ahead, Sloan. Don't be like that.
Oh, okay. I'm driving. It may go out, but I just want to say, my only upset, it wasn't modern day colonialism. Colonialism has never stopped. Like, let's be honest, it has constantly been a raping of Africa for all these years, for 400, 500, 600 years, always. It's not going to change. Anything that Africa does, whether they make these agreements with China to let them put cellular towers in there, it's all because everybody wants some fucking money. The whole fucking world is corrupt. Let me just stop there. Thanks.
And the locals that live there are not going to be happy, whether it be China or America or whoever's trying to rape them. They're not going to be happy.
And exactly. And the saddest part is because China and Russia has been over there, and we want to squeeze our way in and get the leftover crumbs, So I'm very sure that's one of the main reasons why he's interested in having them have some level of peace talk. Because I mean, the war that's going on over there, that's been going on for a very long time. And I mean, we all know the context of all of that. And I'll be an idiot to sit up there with intelligent people, except for Jamal, and give a whole surmise on why that's been going on. We all know already. We're all old enough to know. So America, they're getting the last pieces of crumbs, if you don't know, because Russia and China's been over there for decades, by the way, decades, and not just in DRC, a whole bunch of African countries.
Why can't we just give peace a chance? Let's just give peace a chance. Jamal,
well, we can't give peace a chance because you're cutting somebody off.
Jamal, sometimes being a nigga's a nigga ain't it. All right?
Oof.
But I'm gonna land with that.
Can I get in the queue, First Lady?
Yeah, come on, GA. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm troubled, but, I love Jamal. But, I mean,
Be not troubled, my brother.
I'm just saying. Shout out to you, Jamal, and that juicy fruit flavored weed that you smoking. And you and Trent. Shout out to y'all. Because here's the fact of the matter, and I'm gonna be real succinct, and I'll close my mic to listen to y'all for the rest of the room. What they're doing to Africa, would y'all be okay if somebody came and fucked your wife for 5 straight weeks and then walked off? Because that's what they're doing to Africa. They're doing it to those people. I didn't ask you a question. I'm talking. Go on mute. Mute your mic. If somebody came in and took everything that you love and your resources out of your home, screwed your wife, and snatched your kids, and then said, oh, this is in the name of peace, and you don't know me, but I just showed up. That's literally what they're doing to Africa. That's those people's land. Those are those people's resources, and we don't have a right to go in there and do jack crap with it. And if you have dark skin and you feel that this is cool, please find whatever Michael Jackson did and follow that line, because you are whitey white, super whitey chocolate white. I lame up.
40 years they've been fighting. I mean, think about that. They've been killing each other with machetes and machine guns for almost 40 years.
Not your business.
Now, but it's not our business. Well, I guess it ain't our business what they doing with the U.S. government then.
Let me ask GA something. GA, let me ask you this. Since you're so high and mighty on it, if you participated in the rape and pillage of the Iraq War for 15 years, and between 400,000 and 1.1 million people that died, if you participated in that war, are you as guilty as well? Because this is stopping war, and I don't remember hearing your ferocity for people who participated in the Iraq War.
Okay, let me give you my ferocity about that. First of all, if you've enlisted in the actual military, you understand that you signed a contract saying that you are giving your body to the U.S. government for them to do with it as they will. I did not I signed a contract, so wherever they sent me, I had to do what I was ordered to do. I know most people most people don't understand what contracts are, and they don't understand what orders are, but that's what orders are, okay? When I signed that contract, I did not know I was going to war, and I would have made a different decision, but since I was under contract, I signed a contract to follow orders, and that's exactly what I did, and I did not.
Because I think there are contradictory analyses. But never has that been more apparent than at the Supreme Court level. We saw all of these votes today on a 6-3, all of them, I think, decision based on, if not attributed to the person who appointed them, certainly based on ideology. We know who ideologically are the conservative judges, and we know ideologically, oh boy, I'm going to go back to sleep and start all over again. Got up on the wrong side of the bed. I can't pronounce words today. Who the liberal judges are. So, what difference does it make whether that political affiliation, perception, or reality is manifested at the lower court level versus at the Supreme Court?
Well, wait 1 second, Gary. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think the issue that I'm really trying to highlight is it almost. I think there's just so much room for obstructionism. You have multiple. If you could just go to a lower court and challenge something, you can judge shop. So even take the politics out. If you just have a sense, because there's hundreds of these judges, and you know based on their rulings of other things, probably this is a good judge for this topic. Who's gonna be able to stretch and say whatever order it is.
Generally speaking, there may be some judge shopping going on, but as I understand it, it's based on rotation on the federal court bench. That who's up for the case. So you might question which district ought to have jurisdiction over a case based on the history of decisions made in that district and in that larger circuit. I think that occurs, but I'm not so sure actual judge shopping does occur.
But in any case, if you have let's say hundreds of chances to win, you have many people who can file different lawsuits with slightly different objections, kind of like anyway, I'm trying to think of a good. I was going to use some kind of disease analogy, but anyway, I'll skip it. So all you need is one to exercise this incredible power that the judge had to hold up the entire federal government.
Remember, the objection of the administration is not to final decisions. The objection of the administration is to injunctions. In none of these cases has the Supreme Court ruled it's ultimately going to go to the Supreme Court. Why even have lower courts if every case is going to go to the Supreme Court? I guess I don't understand the argument, and you maybe have to clarify it in my mind if you don't mind.
Well, because it's obstructionist. If it's that important, it's an injunction, then now the Supreme Court is taking that burden onto itself. But it's also giving more guarantee that you can't have you can't just get tied up in the process, in the bureaucracy and the red tape. We're not, we only live so long, and we don't have years and years to get things done. Sometimes we have to get things done quickly. I like to get things done quickly. I don't know about you. And
when you get to my age,
if it's worth an injunction,
when you get to my age double, you'll feel it even stronger.
Gary, that's exactly, by the way, why the founding fathers, that's what they said in Philadelphia. You know what? We don't want checks and balances because we got to get things done quickly. Damn it! We want a system that gets things streamlined and as fast as possible. Exactly what the framers intended in 1787.
Two things can be true. You don't have to necessarily say that you're giving up the checks. It's just the responsibilities moving much more directly to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, they have to now step up to the plate and not take months and months to issue a ruling. They have to be the ones to issue the injunction.
Just remember, they don't have to take any case that they don't want to.
There you go. That's their prerogative as well, but that's part of the checks and balances.
So then how does it get, so here's the thing. When an injunction is issued, it is not a final order. it's an order to maintain the status quo until there is a final order. So I know that you're obviously an adherent to the concept of expediency over all. That's, I think, what you just expressed. But if it's the dismantling of the education department, that's one of the things the president wants to do. He wants to dismantle the education department, and perhaps as the chief executive, he has the right to do so, or perhaps because the education department was authorized and funded by Congress, he does not. That's the issue at hand. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that, and I'm not saying this is true, that the latter is the appropriate decision, that he does not have the right to dismantle the education department. All right, so he just says, at a stroke of a pen, I will note it is not an auto pen, ladies and gentlemen. It is not an auto pen. So I just want to make that, I just want to make that very clear, that unlike his predecessor, it is not an auto pen. Which, of course, if he signed with an auto pen, that would help with the expediency. But at any rate, he takes that Sharpie and he signs the executive order. And poof, the education department disappears. It no longer is in existence. Its assets are sold off. The programs that they were running come to an end. The various states that are accepting money from the federal government to help keep their education system going will lose that money. It takes the federal government out of the classroom and leaves it on the local level. All of that, great. Sure. But now, here's the challenge to that. It's gone. There's no injunction to hold it. Now, the Supreme Court is not in session any longer, right? The Supreme Court right now is no longer in session for I don't know how many months it is before they're back in session. Somebody here will know more than me. Maybe Ben, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Let's say 5 months before they're back in session. 4 months. The now status quo is there is no status quo. There is no education department. So now the case comes before the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court can do one of two things. They can say, let's hear this case to see whether the president had the right to disband the education department. Or the Supreme Court might rule, there is no education department, so plaintiff, you have no standing before the Supreme Court. One or the other. And in any event, it's a fait accompli. By the stroke of a pen, there no longer is an education department. All those people have lost their jobs, which may be a good thing. You might argue that it's a good thing. All that funding to the local school districts through their states comes to an end. All the programs that the education department oversaw, gone.
Can I add something here?
Even if the Supreme Court decides it is valuable to hear the case, even though they might say no standing, what difference does it make? There is no education department. It is gone. So what is wrong, other than the fact that, you want things to be more rapidly decided? What is wrong with saying, wait, hold on. Let's not allow the disbanding of the education department until the Supreme Court has until there's an opportunity to appeal this to the Court of Appeals, and then ultimately, as you have suggested, to the Supreme Court. No harm done, except people who, like Marissa Tomei in the movie Vinny, My Cousin Vinny, you know, everybody's biological clock is tick, tick, ticking. That's true. Biological clocks are tick, tick, ticking. Go ahead and my long question. I apologize.
I think another shifting of burden and responsibility that comes in is now going to be in the Congress, who are making the laws. So, what happens? What just happened is some of the costs or some of this burden, some of these insurances that existed for apparatuses or processes that the government's been following have been removed, and now it's just like one person's whim, more or less. And you're giving examples of
but the Congress has already spoken. In the instant example that I just gave, Congress already spoke.
That's what I'm getting at, Gary. I'm saying they didn't speak enough, and they didn't account for the fact that their work could just be undone like that. They didn't think about these sorts of contingencies. And now, in going forward, I think Congress is going to have to think about, let's put in some kind of insurances or poison pills or something, because if we're creating an education department and we're damn sure we don't want it to be dismantled on a whim, because by default there seems like that's a potential now, they're going to have to put in more clauses and so forth that, okay, maybe the president technically could undo this, but here's all these riders or whatever, all these contingency things that are in the law that the president will have to deal. You know, I think that's that's how you would structure a deal if you were worried about contingencies. And these lawmakers, they're all lawyers. They know how to structure these things. They know how to write contracts, and they're going to have to think about these if conditions. If the president does X, then what? And then so they're gonna it's just a shifting of responsibilities. The people who are saying this is the end of democracy. How long have we been hearing that ever since?
I didn't. That wasn't part of my argument.
You didn't. But I'm saying that phrase came up earlier from a few people, and it's just like just yawn, yawn. Anyway, those are my thoughts. It's just a simple reshuffling of the deck chairs, and life goes on. Thank you very much, Gary.
Here's another what if. What if the President of the United States tomorrow signs an executive order shutting down the FAA? It's too expensive. The FAA is too expensive.
He could do it, and I would imagine that then the Supreme Court would, if they care enough about the country, if they could just be like, no, we're on recess, we don't give a shit, and they'd be negligent in their duties, and whether or not they're in session or not. They have a duty now. They have a greater duty than they had before to do something about it, to get back in session. It's totally their discretion whether they're working or not. And let's be real. So they could do that or not. And it's like, yeah, it's a messed up system if that's how it goes. And it's too bad that we put people in power, or the system got so screwed up that that's the result. But people get the government they deserve.
So we'll just not fly planes in the United States.
Yeah, these are all good. What if? It's like
I mean, a lot of things that have been established by Congress, like the FAA, which is established by statute and funded by Congress, could if you could close down the education department with the stroke of a pen, you could close down the FAA. You'd be saving money, which is what they want to do, apparently.
Let's go.
So, okay. Well, it would be expedient. Steve.
Me or the other?
I apologize. Steve Weeb.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things, Gary, I think we need to think about before we get too carried away with this line of thought. And one is this type of injunction, and I've done an AI search just to make sure that I had, because I knew this, I just didn't know the particulars of it. The AI search says this: for the first 175 years of the Republic, federal courts rarely, if ever, issued injunctions that applied beyond the parties in a case.
That's correct.
At common law. There's other instances here that cite that these kind of injunctions primarily started to kick off in the early to mid 60s. Coincidence? I don't think so. But we're not dealing with something here that has always been in place, that's always been a function and understood operation of the judiciary. It's just not. So when people, say, "Oh my God, we're dealing away with these injunctions," well, guess what? These injunctions wasn't even really recognized as a function of the lower courts for a long time. And there's this thing with Hamilton that he writes about this, which should give us pause. We always talk about the overreach of the executive, but any of the branches, and I would argue that we've had overreaches by the judiciary. Hamilton wrote in his Federalist Papers, the judiciary is the weakest of the three branches of government, without purse or sword. The Supreme Court is dependent on the willingness of others to enforce its orders and on the public's belief in the impartiality to ensure compliance. So this was the court system in and of itself was always envisioned, if we want to talk about our founders and our founding documents, because that's where this always seems to degenerate to, like we're just eviscerating the intent and will of our founding fathers. This is not true. The founding fathers always envisioned the courts and the Supreme Court as the least powerful of the three branches. And like I say, what we're arguing about here now is, I would say, where we started entering into an era that many people characterize as activist courts, where they overstepped the bounds of the judiciary. They wandered into areas that they was never intended constitutionally to be involved in. So to say that this is something new and, oh my God, this is a function of Donald Trump's trying to influence the court, no, this is actually what the court functioned like for a long time. And it's what we've seen for the last, 80 years? It's more of an aberration, not an actual function of the lower courts. So if you think this is hysterical, if you think that the Republic is falling apart, well, I guess well before now it fell apart for 175 years. So that to me kind of nips this argument kind of in the bud, along with the historical reasoning that our founders had and the value they placed in each branch of government, which inevitably led to the function of the citizen, that the government should be more. That's why the House of Representatives every 2 years, it's meant to be responsive to the citizenry. And that's why the House and the Senate should be more responsive to the needs and will of the people. So I think it's something that, and in your case, say the FAA was shut down, that you articulate. I think you could make a case for an emergency injunction to emergency hearing by the Supreme Court. And I think in that case, I think the court would hear. I don't think there'd be any problem with it. So I think you can dig out these extreme cases and the functions they might have on society. But I think when it comes to something like the nationally functioning of the air traffic system in the country, or the big items that make our life manageable every day, I think we could get a fairly rapid response from the Supreme Court. So is it something different in the current environment where we see Republican and Democrats trying to get their guy to handcuff a president? but it's not historically the way it was, and I'll leave it there.
Of course, if we're going to look at history, Steve, historically, have any other presidents, or how many other presidents before Donald Trump unilaterally abolished departments that were created and funded by Congress?
Well, and Gary, that's actually something I think should be adjudicated. And I think it should be adjudicated at the highest level, because by him doing that, a department that was put in place by the Congress, I think that becomes something that should be adjudicated to say, where does this power go? I think it's absolutely something that should be adjudicated. And as a general principle, I agree with you. The concentration of power in the presidency from the Democrats and the Republicans, it doesn't matter who's in the seat. Every president wants as much power as he can accumulate to be free of having to deal with those pesky congressmen. So, but I think too that the Congress has advocated because of the split and the just wanting to be reelected. They don't want to make the hard votes. They don't want to do the tough job. So I think there's a lot of blame to go around, but I think there's some things that have been raised through the executive orders that the Supreme Court needs to adjudicate on Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3 powers and reestablish those lines brightly so everyone knows where they stand. I'll leave it there, Gary.
So I guess the ultimate argument is only the Supreme Court has the authority to throw a check, not the judiciary, specifically the Supreme Court, a check to what might be an illegal action by the presidency. Presidency, not president. Thank you, Steve. And
the word unfettered in the title of the room, I hope you will allow me to suggest that a synonym for that is unconstrained. So did the Supremes give the presidency unconstrained power? No. No more. I mean, we're arguing semantics. Was the nuclear weapons program of Iran obliterated with one military strike? And we've been arguing about that for 2 or 3 days, 4 days in this room. To say, and Jane, I know, well, she was back up on the stage, but I think she said,
I'm here.
Some guy named Steve Acorn, who, okay, he's a lawyer and he was a clerk for Supreme Court Justice, but he just said, if I remember what you quoted, that the Supreme Court just did something with the rule of law. I think it was, it didn't say obliterated, but it canceled or it did something to suggest that we no longer have the rule of law. I think we're back into hyperbole.
The phrase, sorry to interrupt you, was they killed it.
Okay, they killed the rule of law. Holy cow.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Won't anybody admit that is outright hyperbole? I mean, I don't want to get I know we can't discuss this back and forth because of the constraints of the room, but to say that we have killed the rule of law by this Supreme Court decision, I think we're arguing hyperbole. Now, we have, Steve has articulated several times now the age-old, I mean, this goes back to the founding of the country. Steve can quote Jefferson, and he's quoted Hamilton. Jefferson was terrified. He was strongly against the power of the judiciary, the power of judges, as I recall Steve's comments. So is it proper that one judge in one court can stop an action nationwide? I'm scratching my head on that, because, and then I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I don't think the president has unconstrained power. I think the constraints on his power have been adjusted by this ruling, but I don't think it's the end of the country, and I don't think we killed the rule of law in doing it, and this thing will wind its way through the courts, and I totally agree with the consensus in this room, I think, that Congress hasn't been that the executive over the last, let's just go through from 9/11. I mean, we could go back historically, but absolutely the executive keeps trying to accumulate more power within the executive branch. I don't think there's anybody that can argue that. But can you also argue that Congress continues to abdicate power to the executive because of its failure to act with the powers embedded in Article 1? So who's to blame? The executive trying to get more power, or Congress as a body abdicating that power? And in the midst of that tangle, we now have single judges that are going to try to arbitrate, or should those kinds of arguments or questions go to the ultimate power and to declare something unconstitutional, which always has been in the hands of the Supreme Court? So this is an interesting argument. I believe that we are not we're not going to shut down the FAA and have airplanes grounded. And Trump has said he wants to shut down the Department of Education. He said that on his campaign, and he's going to try to do it. But it sounds to me like he even says it's going to take an act of Congress to do it. So we'll have to wait and see whether the whole department gets shut down or not. But I think that all the Supreme Court did was it constrained the power of individual judges in lower courts to make nationwide decisions. And I guess I applaud that constraint of that kind of power, and we'll see what happens next.
Well, since we're discussing semantics, these are not actually nationwide decisions. These are temporary injunctions. So all it's doing is putting things on hold until there is a nationwide decision. So if expediency is important over following the process, then I'm with you and with double. But if we want to be more deliberate about how we approach these issues, and we wanted to give it a chance, as you point out, to wind its way through the courts, these various issues, eventually to the Supreme Court. I mean, there are 600 district court judges in this country, more or less. That's a lot more opportunity for judicial review than just the members of one court, So I think part of the reason we have this process is to unburden the Supreme Court from having to hear every single case. And so we're going to be putting a lot on the Supreme Court here if we say we're not going to have lower court decisions that can hold until it gets to the Supreme Court.
Gary, very quick, just since Anson mentioned me. I think that if you don't want to listen, Anson, to me or my reference to Steve Crone, my friend Al Stern, who I think you know, reminds me that Justice Brown Jackson said, "With deep disillusionment, I dissent." So you could read what the dissenting actual constitutional scholars who are in the Supreme Court have.
Right, but the majority are also actual constitutional scholars,
Yeah,
and
I
they
know.
disagree with that position. So,
All right, fair enough.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I didn't want. I thought just maybe an alternative that was less disputable than me and.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to have that discussion with you, Jane. We just can't do it in this room. The room's not designed for that kind of dialogue.
Fair enough.
So, so I'm not diminishing what you had to say. I was just trying to make sure I got the quote right. And I strongly disagree with the words uttered by Mr. Acorn that the Supreme Court just killed the rule of law. I think that's a gross exaggeration of what happened. But you can disagree, and I'd love to go one-on-one with you sometime over a cup of coffee.
Thank you, Anson and Jane. We are into extra time. No additional people will be invited onto the stage, but we're going to try our darndest to get to everyone, except here's the aforementioned Steve Crone. I have to give him the opportunity to respond to those who referenced him. So hang on for that, folks. All right, so let's move along rapidly. Dominic.
Okay, Gary, I'll be quick. Shabbat shalom. Let's see here. The use of constitutional law to affect social change is an American, it's American apple pie, right? I think in terms of, significant constitutional cases, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. We have spoke about the Wong Kim Ark, 1898. That's a birthright citizenship case. In each of those cases, it's interesting enough, one justice dissented in both. Justice Harlan, who was made famous by his dissent in the Supreme Court's decision denying citizenship to blacks in the United States, and his dissent in that case was heralded as an act of bravery and constitutional ethics and whatnot. And his dissent in the Wong Kim Ark case, which established birthright citizenship, is often discarded as racist and antiquated.
Didn't an amendment to the Constitution establish birthright citizenship?
Well, in the Wong Kim Ark case, it was decided that the 14th Amendment or portions of it having to do with citizenship did establish that. Obviously, Harlan disagreed strenuously with that interpretation, which is the point of my bringing him up. But the point I wanted to make in a larger sense was that in cases where advocacy is the citizens' effort to get the Supreme Court to decide things that the political process will not decide. So, for example, in 1982, in Plyer versus Texas, the Supreme Court decided that the state of Texas could not deny public education to the children of illegal immigrants. That case, which probably ranks as probably the most important immigration-related civil rights cases in American history, which was decided by a 6-2 decision with Justice Rehnquist and Justice Berger dissenting, who the two of them held that the United States could not prevent a state from deciding how it was going to spend its money. And that case is held up. Of course, it did a tremendous amount to stimulate mass migration in the United States, since we all know what happened since 1982 with mass migration. But the idea that you could get a free education for your children was an incredible stimulus to the idea of migration in the hemisphere. But that case, interestingly enough, was brought by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, who hired a, I guess you might call him a famous migration advocate lawyer, a guy by the name of Ball, who had attended a conference in Latin America where the conference was made. I used to know this, I forget, but they issued sort of an encyclical, a sort of a Catholic oriented document that challenged the United States to become, that challenged Catholics to challenge the Supreme Court of the United States to take action in the area of education and civil rights as it relates to illegal immigrants. I thought that was a fascinating exercise in civil liberties, if you want to call it that, advocacy, the crushing of the separation of church and state, and so I just kind of want to take the gloss or the some kind of idealistic notion that a constitutional law is some kind of kindergarten where only nice people play, and that hardball politics need not enter. And I think Anson's notation of the use about the use of hyperbole is an interesting case, interesting take on it. So that's all I really have. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
And I just want to publicly thank Yasi for correcting me. Of course, her last name is Tomei, not Tomez. I think I said Tomez. Apologize for that. Thank you, Dominic. We now go to Steve Appel.
Hi, Gary. Hi, Scott. Hello, everybody else. Gary, if it's okay with you, I would like to donate all of my time, except for 60 seconds, to Steve Crone.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get to Steve, so don't worry. I've carved out time for him. Don't worry.
Okay, well, I would just like to reserve 60 seconds to, after he speaks, ask him a follow-up question or two, but I would like him...
Stay on the stage, and after Steve's turn, we'll give Steve an opportunity to question Steve, and then we will allow Steve to respond to Steve's questioning of Steve.
Thank you.
You're welcome. David. David.
Sorry, Gary. I thought Steve was going to speak. Going away from my phone. I think everything's been said, Gary, with regard to what this represents for the nation, what this represents for the Trump administration, executive power. The Supreme Court obviously was a predictable ruling, and the number 6-3 is obviously in line with some other very important decisions down the pike. Recall, these are the same justices who swore an oath that that abortion precedent was the rule of law when they got their nominations, when they made the short list of right-wing Catholic in this country, and we've seen the assault on a lot of these liberties The lives of countless of millions of Americans born to the undocumented says volumes with regard to the police powers.
We lost you there, David. Sorry. Ben.
Of all stripes, Gary.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I don't hear David at all.
Yeah, me neither. I think he's in the Matrix. Thank you, Gary. I think last time said. Hello?
You're there, Ben.
Okay, I thought David came back. Looking at this opinion, I think it's far-reaching in a couple of ways. First of all, it decides universal injunctions availability as a relief offered by the federal court. And I think that's quite significant beyond the birthright citizenship issue substantive. This is really an opinion that takes away a major tool that could have used by federal courts to rein in unconstitutional legal actions of the executive branch. In some ways, it dovetails pretty nicely with quotation marks with the provision in the Big Beautiful providing remitting authority of the federal court for relief on contempt of court order, meaning in a case such as we discussed previously on the immigration cases, if the federal government decides to ignore Judge Boasberg or any other judge order on the actions of the executive branch, there's a lot less that the court can actually enforce its orders. So I think this opinion is a sort of a continuous piece in the chess game, if you will, of basically enabling the executive branch and basically amplifying its power. I specifically did not mention Trump administration because this is about judicial branch, executive branch, and legislative branch.
Exactly.
Yeah, in a few years' time, I'm no fortune teller, but there is a non-zero possibility that the presidency can be held by Democrats. It's not like, well, it's probably difficult in this current political environment, but it's not possible. And as we saw what happened in New York City mayor's race, politics have to really respect the laws of physics. With action, there's counteraction. When the political pendulum swings to the far right, there's a counterforce that makes it go to the far left. So I think the opinion is very significant. It's long-reaching. And it's a bit of ironic that when you read the majority's opinion, a major authority, if you will, or of logic that it relies on is to go back to the crown, to England, at the founding of the United States, by describing the type of equity power that the courts should have as provided in that 1789 Judicial Act. And this majority in this opinion says we should look at that time in England. Obviously, the Court of Equity is enclosed in the 1789 Act, so federal courts in the U.S. should have equitable power. But the majority describes that equitable power as, let's look at the type of equitable power that in 17-something English courts that they have, and we should really limit or restrain the federal court equitable power to those type of circumstances. That, to me, that's very jarring, because it basically ignores really the definition of equitable power. But having said that, I'll say a few things. What I found this kind of interesting that I mentioned in this room, because we're not a court of law. This is not a law school. Even though probably the print will give us an excellent description of the cases, I'll mention a couple of things that I thought would be entertaining from a reader's perspective. When the majority described Justice Jackson's dissent, the tone seems to be very dismissive, and it reads more like sort of a law article or even a journalist description or advocacy piece versus a balanced decision commenting on their colleagues. For example,
from what I hear from those who were in the court who were reporting on television today, it was a very interesting. You could hear a pin drop in the court, which you should anyway in the Supreme Court. But there was a lot. I mean, she was sitting right next to Comey Barrett apparently, because Gorsuch wasn't there, and it was a very tense kind of a situation in the courtroom with them.
So there's one point where Justice Barrett, the majority, attacks Jackson's dissent's rationale to the fact that she's the majority is alleging, in the name of restraining executive power, Justice Jackson is advocating for the supremacy of the courts, meaning that to prevent a king-like power exercised by the executive branch, maybe Jackson was advocating that the executive branch, the judges should be acting like a king. I'm paraphrasing. This is not a quote. But what I found that's very interesting and very important to speak to that is, majority says the Congress has constrained in the Judicial Act. What matters now is how judiciary may constrain the executive. Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. Everyone from the president on down is bound by law. She's quoting Justice Jackson. But then the majority goes on to say, that goes for the judges too. Now, I just want to address that conclusion for a second. That seems to be saying, hey, judges, you're not better than the executive branch. That sounds very rational, reasonable, right? Co-equal branch, right? However, in the matter of constitutional interpretation, someone has to have the final word. Someone, in the case, one of the three branches, right? Otherwise, it'll be he said, she said. Or in the case, three parties, it said, and some other party said. So, in the case of a federal court, the courts are they do have limited jurisdiction, absolutely. But the limited jurisdiction does not mean that courts are always so inferior to the what's so-called elected officials. In some cases, particularly with respect to constitutional interpretation, the courts have final say. Again, at least this is the theory that I believe makes more sense. And that is because the legislature and the executive branch, they basically have power in many other areas of the law, of our lives. They can decide on taxation rates, they can decide on interstate commerce, blah, blah, etc., that sort of thing. They can decide on national language, etc., etc. But in the case where individual rights are infringed upon as protected in the Constitution, the branch that decides on how those interpretations should be announced should reside with the federal court, and that, to me, is Marbury versus Madison. And ironically, the majority quoted that case in a very different proposition, which is I find a bit of a disingenuous. So I think for the majority to appear startled or annoyed at this dissent's announcement that no one is above the law, and by retorting to say, well, courts are not above the law either, I think that's a bit of a disingenuous. because in the case that these justice 9 people are facing, they have to have the final say. And in reality, it is the final say. After the universal injunction is denied, that's pretty much the last resort, unless Congress comes up with certain new statutory provisions giving the universal injunction to the courts. And even then, as some of the concurrents have said in the decision, that may not be constitutional permissible, even if Congress were to give federal courts universal injunction power. And I also know that pretty much everybody in the majority, not everybody, but 4 or 5, Justice Thomas, Kavanaugh, they all wrote separately, beyond saying, oh, I agree with the majority, no universal injunction. Justice Alito even said something, hey, this is the max. Plaintiffs, don't think too hard. We're not going to give you a lot of things more than, what you're entitled to or what you think you're entitled to. So it seems like the majority is, some of the justices on the majority, they don't even think that the majority opinion is enough. They want to announce more stricter rules, and even sort of, in my mind, a further weakening of the judiciary power. So I will end this by saying this. Yes, if you happen to be on the political spectrum of the Trump, etc., you'll be very, very happy because your president has less restraint on the type of executive order that they can do, the administration can do. But remember, be careful of what you wish for. And this is the same thing when, in the judicial nomination, the fight in terms of the nomination and the judicial process in the Senate. One party may think we're going to screw the other party by changing the rules, but then again, it comes back and haunt you. And I think the problem for us, the voters, the Joe Schmoes, if you will, is that this trend would further divide this country up. And honestly, in my mind at least, it weakens the democracy. It may not take a democracy away, but it weakens the American democracy to the point, almost like what Jane was suggesting, maybe even jokingly, that maybe there should be 2 countries, the former Confederate states, and then the rest of the whatever blue states, if you want to call it. That is obviously laughable and not likely, but it really points to the possibility that the United States of America as a whole country is weakened by some of the decisions that we're facing today. And that is not a good thing for anyone. So I just hope that this opinion, this decision alerts all the voters that when we thought that the courts can check the power of the executive branch, the check and balance, perhaps that's idealistic thinking on our part. Maybe we should recognize that the federal courts are not to be relied upon for protecting minority right. Minority, I don't mean racial. I mean the percentage-wise in terms of offered by the Constitution. Maybe we're back in the Darwinism era where really majority wins, which after all is some people think what democracy is. Thank you, Gary.
So you mentioned the pendulum. Just remember, when the pendulum swings from one side to the other, it has to go through the middle. David, you want to try again?
Yeah, Gary, can you hear me?
For now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I was, what I wanted to say, what I was trying to say was that it's no accident, I don't think, that, again, the pattern of this court, Supreme Court, with their 6-3 decision, the searing dissents that came from Jackson and Sotomayor, clearly speak to the climate and the environment in which we find ourselves here in these United States of America. And I'm speaking to the assault on immigration, or the assault on immigrants from all stripes, not just the Latino community, the Asian community, the Hindu, Muslim communities all over America that are finding themselves shuddering in their houses while the ICE men of this country are allegedly in the process of eradicating hardened criminals. So the fact that this lower court judge ought to be applauded for reading the Constitution the way that it was truth. And Gary, this is not this didn't happen overnight. The law being in place now, based in our Constitution, paid at a heavy cost against many in this country, the history of this country, where equal rights were afforded. Dred Scott was just emblematic of thousands and thousands of slaves and descendants of slaves who were denied their rights. The Kim decision is another a recent example of not allowing a Chinese American or Chinese national from owning his birthright in this country. So the fact now that we see many descendants of Latino communities, the children of these undocumented, being potentially denied the rights, their birthright to this nation, is nothing more than overreach, which you can call it in many stripes, and I'm not going to go there. But they could have said this is the law of the land. They could have denied Trump with victory, and could have maybe said that the injunction, while broad and sweeping in its power, hit the mark with regard to how the Constitution is written and how it was structured to address these grievances. And our nation is just full of examples of where, Dominic pointed out the rightly worded decision in Texas that said we have to implicate the undocumented. So this nation has to somehow come to grips with the changing demographics and not use the power of the state to try to remedy or equal the playing field or whatever it is they're trying to do, Gary. I'm all for a safe nation. I'm all for a nation governed by laws and not men. I'm all for a nation that includes as many people as possible within the realm of that. And I get it, Gary. There are a lot of people in this country that are working in margins, got here somehow, some way, here illegally, didn't follow the rules. But let's create better rules. Let's create a better streamlined process to put these people to work, to educate them, to have them here legally, so we don't have this climate of fear. And I appreciate you, Gary, alluding to the fact, and I'll land here because I want to hear what Steve has to say. I appreciate you, Gary, using your cultural heritage and your background to frame this in a way that speaks to a very horrific time in our world's history, and that was the Holocaust. Because I can't speak that way like you can, Gary. I don't have family that died over there in that respect. Or I am not part of a community that faces anti-Semitism on a daily basis. So, but I will say this, it is representative. When I see what's happening here in Los Angeles, this is just nothing more than another strike or mark against the hardworking communities of this country. And I'll land there.
Thank you, David. I might have misunderstood something that you said, so I will, whether I did or didn't misunderstand you, I will point out that the justices did not weigh in on the question at the heart of that lawsuit. In other words, whether the birthright citizenship order itself is constitutional. That has not yet been adjudicated.
No, I get that. You're right.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll go now to Hermes.
Good evening, Gary. Yeah, it's a sad day in our country. I don't want to say much because I don't want to repeat what people have said. So I would say that I hope we can make things better. Thanks for the mic, Gary.
Thank you, Hermes. And before we go to Steve Crone, I just want to point out what I said in the beginning, and that is the reason the title of the room says presidency and not president is because it has effect on ensuing administrations, which may not be philosophically aligned with the current one, and that's something that needs to be considered. Steve Crone.
Hi. I haven't been here since the beginning of the room, so I just chanced into the room just as my name was being mentioned. It was really surreal. So I have actually 5 points I want to make. One of them is not about, if I understood this right, were people really debating the headline of my clubhouse room? Is that actually what was happening?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just quickly deal with that because it's so freaking silly. Gary, when you wrote the headline, did the Supremes just give the presidency unfettered power? You knew that, right, obviously the answer to that question is no. You didn't really believe that was up for debate. You just wrote a headline that would kind of frame what you were going to talk about today, and you weren't actually trying to summarize some opinion about what happened today. I assume most people understand that. We had a 2-hour discussion today about this opinion. And to the extent that people are excited that the headline didn't encapsulate what happened, oh, mea culpa, please forgive me. I mean, that's just so stupid that I don't think.
I am so, this is like a support group. You should come more often.
I mean, that's just so ridiculous.
Because I get this all the time, that people are coming to the stage, and I guess you get it as well. I don't know what goes on in other rooms at Clubhouse, because I'm not a Clubhouse user, you know.
Right.
But I have had people come on, and rather than discuss the topic based on the intent, I mean, you only have a finite number of characters.
Letters.
Right. You know, they'll take issue with how I framed it. Well, that's just clickbait, Gary, or, you know, unfettered. Yes, that exactly has and will probably continue. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I feel so much better. I feel
you're still awful, Gary. I mean,
well, that may be true, but at least in terms of that aspect of what I'm doing, I'm glad to see that you're getting the same zings that I'm.
So, well, I didn't know I was until I happened in here. So, and now 5 quick substantive points. First is, it's a false dichotomy to suggest that the choice we have is between willy-nilly, unreviewable nationwide injunctions that can't be reviewed by anyone and are, you know, and no power for any federal court to ever issue a nationwide injunction. Those are not the only 2 choices. Before this opinion was issued today, there were guidelines about when courts could and couldn't do this. They've always been reviewable. A court of appeals can sometimes act within a few days or a week if some rogue district judge issues an unconscionable nationwide injunction. It's just a false dichotomy. It's just lazy intellectually. That's not the choice. But what the court did today is pick one of those 2 choices. And even that isn't quite correct, because they actually didn't rule on nationwide injunctions either. Everyone has gotten the point that they didn't rule on birthright citizenship, but they also didn't rule on nationwide injunctions as a technical matter, because all they were doing was reviewing a request to stay an injunction of a lower court, which is itself a form of preliminary relief, which means they just said it was likely not within the power of federal courts, or stated another way, the government was likely to win on the merits when this is actually litigated on the merits.
Oh man, I'm so glad you pointed that out. I did not even focus on that in the last hour and a half, the term likely, and you are absolutely correct.
So, but again, it has the effect of essentially sending the message that that's going to be the law of the land, even if it isn't today. So, point 1, false dichotomy. You can have nationwide injunctions with review, with guidelines. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't.
But Steve, let me interrupt just for a second to say that at 11:30 this morning, actually about 11:39, so like 40 minutes or something after the decision was handed down, the president had held a mini news conference where he basically said that is exactly what has happened. Big win.
Right. Well, he's an ignoramus, but you know, we'll let's not get sidetracked on what he thinks about this. Point number 2, the court's logic actually dictates that all federal courts, including the Supreme Court, probably don't have the power to issue nationwide injunctions. So to the extent that people are saying, oh, it's just district courts that shouldn't be doing this, but ultimately the Supreme Court will rule on whether something is illegal or not, whether it's on constitutional grounds or statutory grounds or whatever, and then they can issue the nationwide injunction. Well, those are people who didn't read the opinion and don't know what it says, because the opinion says that it is likely the case that no court has the power to issue such an injunction. And indeed, this is pointed out in the dissent. And Justice Barrett, in the majority opinion, does not claim that this is an inaccurate claim. She actually says, of course the executive is supposed to follow the law. Of course, if the courts tell the executive that something they want to do or have done is unconstitutional, they're supposed to listen to the court. But that doesn't mean that the court has the power to force them to. So the idea that this is just something about lower federal judges also just doesn't have any connection to what's actually happening. Point 3. Yes, this is a very serious problem. Again, mea culpa, it's not the death of the rule of law. You got me, I'm an ignoramus. But it's a very serious problem that's going to arise in certain cases. It's not going to arise in every case because many cases don't require a nationwide injunction to provide adequate relief. But in some cases, this is going to be a real problem. What the court, in effect, is saying today is that in a wide variety of settings, if the executive branch violates someone's constitutional rights or someone's statutory rights, and they sue and they win, it might be an individual, it might be a group of individuals, it might even be a class of 6,000 individuals. Federal courts probably only have the power to issue relief with regard to that one person or 6 people or 6,000 or whatever it is. And sometimes that just doesn't make any sense. A situation where the president announces that nobody has birthright citizenship anymore and starts to take rights away from people. And then 3 federal judges, not 1, 3 federal judges, 3 federal judges all find this to be perhaps the easiest case that's ever come before them because it's so obviously unconstitutional. What the Supreme Court said today is that the executive should be free to continue to take away the rights from everyone else who wasn't a party to one of those 3 lawsuits. And then those people can go to court and get another federal judge to say it's obviously unconstitutional. But even after that happens, the executive can keep doing it to lots and lots of other people. And in contexts where a president like the one we currently have might be very cavalier about violating people's constitutional and statutory rights, that's a very serious problem. Oh, it's illegal to arrest people in the way you have and fly them off to a foreign country. Let's assume a court held that. And then the president just did it again to another group of people. Well, the court's position is, well, yeah, that's okay. The court can't say don't do that anymore. They can only say you violated the rights of the people who are suing you because you did it to them. But those other people that you did it to the next day after we told you it was unconstitutional, we can't tell you not to do it to them. We expect you to follow the law, but we have no power to force you to follow the law. As was said in a very different context, in fact, almost the opposite context, frankly, the Constitution is not a suicide pact. The idea that we need to interpret, I'll say, the Judiciary Act of 1789 is not a suicide pact. And the idea that the court just had no choice but to interpret the Judiciary Act in a way that prevents it that prevents a court from saying to a president, you're doing something that's unconstitutional. We're ordering you not to do it to anybody else, not just the people who are suing you today. They didn't have to do that. That's point 3. Point 4, the court ignores the underlying facts. And for one reason, that's totally appropriate, obviously. The court wasn't addressing the question of whether an executive order eliminating constitutional birthright citizenship is unconstitutional. I mean, it obviously is, but that wasn't the issue before the court. But that doesn't mean that those underlying facts are not relevant to this case. The court would have been faced with any kind of facts. The underlying lawsuit might have been about anything, but it was about something. It was about stripping folks of rights that they have by virtue of the fact that they're U.S. citizens. The right to be here, the right to receive certain kinds of benefits, all sorts of rights that flow from citizenship. And indeed, one of the parties suing was a group of states who were saying this is a problem because of the way we allocate certain benefits, and citizenship is a part of how that's done. That's what this case was about. So the court didn't simply make some technical ruling about the Judiciary Act and nationwide injunctions. They said to this president, with regard to these litigants, you can't treat them as if they don't have citizenship. Maybe it has to be sent back to the court to limit the injunction just to them. But as to anybody else, go ahead and keep doing it. Don't worry about it, because a court can't tell you to stop doing it. The court can decide a case cognizant of those facts. It wasn't deciding that issue, but this isn't in a vacuum. We're not talking about just any president and any case. We're talking about a president who has shown not just a predilection, but a relish for taking away people's rights. And my final point is a minor one, but it's just in response to something you said. It's often said when the court does something that folks believe is, expanding presidential power too much, or giving Congress too much power, or curtailing Congress's power too much, or anything involving the 3 branches of government. Oh, well, you may like it now because it's your president, or you like the Congress's policies, but, it could swing the other way. This, to me, is one of the most specious things. Obviously, it's literally true, but it implicitly assumes that every president is predisposed to act in the way that this administration acts. And that's ridiculous. There's no reason to believe that virtually any other person, if any other person, who's ever been elected to the office of president would behave anything like this person behaves. And are there isolated examples of presidents doing things that are unconstitutional, ignoring court orders? Of course, there are isolated incidents. But the breadth and scope of the lawlessness of this administration is absolutely unprecedented. And in the face of that, the Supreme Court says, well, we expect the executive to follow the law, but we can't make him.
Don't go away, Steve, because Steve Appel has a question for you.
Thank you very much. Number one, Steve Crone, I missed your room today. If replays were on, I heard they were. If you could send me a link to the room, because I checked on your profile, I don't see it. I would greatly appreciate it.
Just go to SCOTUS Confidential or Supreme Court Confidential, and you'll find.
Thank you. I'd like to ask one follow-up question, and I'll be done. Thank you. Steve, just to clarify, the ruling today Does it or does it not apply to all the presidents of the United States going forward?
It does not. But there's a technical reason which I tried to explain. The court did not rule today that under the Judiciary Act of 1789, federal judges do not have the power to issue nationwide injunctions. They did not rule that. What they ruled on was a motion by the government to stay an injunction ordered by a lower court. So what the Supreme Court did is they said, we agree with you, government. We are telling the lower courts that issued these injunctions that they need to reconsider what they did in light of our opinion and narrow their injunctions. That's all they did. This case only applies to the litigants in the 3 cases that were on appeal today in the Supreme Court. So that's the technical answer to your question. However, the court also wrote, I don't know how many, 30, 40 pages on why they believe that the Judiciary Act doesn't authorize federal courts to issue nationwide injunctions. So if I were a litigant in a case, doesn't have to be the president, in which a federal court issued a nationwide injunction, I would certainly go into court tomorrow and I would say, hey, judge, you want to reconsider what you did to my client in light of that beautiful Supreme Court opinion yesterday? And some judges might say, okay, I'll reconsider, but a judge would be perfectly within their rights, in my opinion, to say, what are you talking about? They opined about what they thought would likely happen when that issue is litigated. They lifted a stay in a particular case. That's got nothing to do with you or this case. And get out of my courtroom. There's still a nationwide injunction. Pound sand.
Thank you, Steve.
And thank you both, Steves. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. New York time, so until 5 p.m. New York time on Monday. Everybody stay safe, be well, have a great weekend, and peace out.
The argument was that an average woman is equivalent to a high-value man. And I really want y'all to think about that, because I really feel like that is true. I feel like even when Abby was talking about the totality of things, like if we see one trait in a woman, we say she's masculine. If we see one trait in a man, we say she's feminine. I don't necessarily agree. And yes, if she has one trait that's not deemed feminine, she's deemed as masculine. But I feel like men get a lot of grace with their femininity because a lot of them are not operating in masculinity. You know, we live in a culture where it is okay for men to omit their masculine responsibilities. We deem co-parenting okay, like that's a new thing. It's like co-parenting, but you know, being on the front line every day with your child, or you know, living or leading patriarch-led households, that's not, you know, that's the ultimate idea of masculinity. Like a father being present in the home being led by a patriarchy, because they say you are what your father is, and that's why we take our father's last name and whatnot. But we have tons of households, especially in the Black community, that are not led that way. Kids having their mother's last names, you know, kids either having their mother's last names, or the husband or the man not being there and being okay with having multiple broken homes and whatnot. So a lot of men get leeway when it comes to this whole masculinity thing, and it really gets reduced to like an aesthetic. So if a man is tall, they say that men who aren't tall is not masculine. That's bullshit. Like, I mean, just because he's not tall, does that mean he's not masculine? You know what I mean? But he might be a damn good father. Like, but he's not tall. He doesn't, quote unquote, let his nuts hang or whatever. So he's not masculine. Like, so it's a lot of promotion of toxic masculinity, and men, they get away with it. They get away with doing a lot of feminine things, and still being able to, like, for instance, they always say women are emotional. Men are more emotional than women. They just try to show it. They just try to hide it with stoicism. Like, they try to be stoic, but it's like, no, you're emotional as hell. Like, you can't really control your emotions. Like, you make decisions out of emotions. You decide that you're not gonna take care of this child because you wasn't in love with the woman, but you're gonna take care of the child that you married the woman to. That's built off of emotion. You decided to whether you want to be a father or not based on how you feel about a woman. That's emotional. Like, so at the end of the day, I feel like, for me, that's why I feel like money, and it's not in totality. It's not like only money makes masculinity. But the thing about money and the thing about having wealth is that what it shows is a level of discipline that a lot of people don't have, especially Black men, because it takes time, skill, investment, focus to be able to master something to where you're making good money. Not just having money, where you're making good money, whether you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, whether you went to school, whether this, whatever. The things that these women are doing, the things that these women are doing, they need to do it as well.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Wait. Could I respond? I was just trying to respond to her.
No, I just want to ask her one simple question real quick, and then we can move on. Do you find Barack Obama, would you say that he's masculine to you? Do you find him as a masculine man? And that's the question, yes or no?
Absolutely,
thank you.
yes.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so Penny, I just wanted to respond because of what you were saying in the disagreement. So, this is why I don't like it when people describe masculinity and femininity as opposites. Because what that often leads people to believe is that if you're not one, you must be the other. So, for example, like when we're talking about it, like you just said, like some men get away with not being very masculine. Sure, and I would agree with that. Plenty of men do get away with not being masculine. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're being feminine, though. And here's an example. For example, like if a guy, he's supposed to be like a hard worker, go-getter, all that kind of stuff. Okay, but he's actually not any of that. He's lazy. Does that mean he's feminine? No, because laziness is not femininity, right? That's not necessarily femininity. It's just a bad trait. It's not a feminine trait. You get what I'm saying? Like just because you don't perform as masculine very well, like you're not doing the masculine things you want, or you are not being masculine or whatever, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're being feminine. It just might mean you're just not a good person. You're just lazy, you're annoying, you're uncontrolled in your emotions. Like that's another example you talked about men being emotional, right? Like I don't even like it when people associate being emotional like as a feminine trait, because it's not really a desirable trait. I've never heard no man, never seen nor heard any man go, man, I'm really attracted and I'm really turned on by my woman crying all the time and bickering and doing all this and all that, right? Like being uncontrolled in their emotions. I don't think that's an attractive feature at all, period, in men or women. And so, like sometimes because we're associating masculinity and femininity as opposites, we just look at anytime somebody fails at doing
at least $300 tonight if she just put the
really?
cash in that box.
I don't understand why you
get a belt
And
buckle.
out of that 300, I want my motherfucking 100, and I'm gonna give April the 5. So don't worry about the 5 for her. I'll give her the 5. I'll hand her the 5, and you can take the 200. Now put the cash app up.
I just said, put your cash app up there. Somebody take that out the Jumbotron, and then
I'm not putting my cash app up.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Somebody put it up so we can start, billing, because I need billing hours. These shows be going, or these rooms, these platforms be going on for decades.
The
And it's just like,
entertainment that you provide, Sister Bob, put the cash app up.
I was going to ask you this, right? Not because of the time and energy that you put into generating rooms,
the titles, the content, people, right? Why don't you create a YouTube channel where you could actually put this out there and monetize it? Like, you already have the content. It's not very hard to do the YouTube. I don't see why you wouldn't.
You don't have to do that because people are streaming it without permission.
They're not going to have, like, that. We can take that down at any time.
Jimmy, why don't you help Lisa with her YouTube page?
I'd be more than willing to help do that. I have 2 YouTube channels. Neither one of them are small, so I know how to do it.
Oh, and I got a good idea with going a step further. That's a great idea, Gemini. What if we reach out to the owners for Clubhouse sponsorship to produce it, so that
oh my God, what are you guys smoking today?
That's a YouTube idea.
Okay, all right. What else is left on the menu? Well, we can finish out. We started by talking about SCOTUS birthright ruling, and it just so happened that I saw somebody brought up this breaking news about the this agreement being signed between Rwanda and the DNC, and Marco Rubio is the one who's sitting in between these two very eloquent Africans who are, I don't know where Trump is. I guess he had to go take a bathroom break. I don't know, but it's Marco Rubio who's having them sign the paperwork per what I'm looking at. But Trump he's warned them, you people over there are going to have severe penalties, financial and otherwise. I don't know what the fuck otherwise is, if the agreement is violated. Not only are we going to take their minerals, we're taking it with a threat. You just can't.
That part is crazy.
That's illegal. That's illegal.
That's the part that I think Patty was talking about earlier.
Verbatim.
So I did Google what happened under the Biden team that initiated the peace process, right? So what happened was, it says, apply pressure on Rwanda, the DRC, to enter the talks. They suspended the military aid to Rwanda because of human rights violations. Then the UN and African Union, they supported the ceasefire. So all this created the diplomatic environment that made this deal possible. He didn't do anything. All this has been done under United Nations guidance. The team that was originally put together, but some of them left, like Blinken, we know he's not really part of it when it comes to, but a lot of those diplomats are still the same diplomats. So like, this is kind of weird that y'all, and this is why I said the DNC is so fucking stupid. The Democratic Party is dumb as fuck. They need to open their fucking mouth and say what they're doing. Like, this is what's gonna happen. These are the phases. Phase 1, we're gonna do this. Phase 2, because when you read the 2024, you know this all actually started. The peace deal started back in 2023. And each one of those phases, 2024 was another, so when it comes to these accords and the mechanisms that enforced it, it all was under the Biden administration. He was the umbrella of the framework, so. But I can tell you a lot of people is not buying into it. I wasn't buying into it, honestly, because I don't trust them.
The threat part that Lisa just read is crazy, though, because that kind of leads back to when you said, we're going to end up with military action. I was trying to see how, but if he's leading, if y'all don't, then there's going to be consequences. Then that means that's already on the table, off top.
Quiet. Yeah, Patty, I didn't like it when it was actually, I'm like you. I didn't think it was going to yield much of anything. I didn't think it was a smart move, and I just fundamentally think that even though Africa has those resources, the way they went about it, I just don't. I think America has too much blood on its hand when it comes to Africa. America just has too much blood, and that's a moral and ethical place that I stand, not from a methodical place as far as the bits and pieces of what the Bridge Act actually did. But I'm like, when you screw over a group of people you snatched from there for 400 years, you might need to fall the hell back. Yeah, you need minerals, but you just might need to fall the hell back. Yeah. That might be a thought, just in decency and in order. But if you take that off the table, I'm with you, Patty. I just didn't like it from the beginning, even though Biden did.
And see, this is the thing that y'all not. This is a diplomatic agreement. This is not a treaty. It's not a defense pact. So like when y'all talk about violations, this is not going to be military retaliation. But under this administration, I do think that he would use military retaliation to enforce like what they want politically and economically. Like this is the shit that we're in. And then the bad part about it is this shit is in violation of international law, because military option is not fucking automatic when it comes to self-defense. What are we defending when it comes to Article 51? Like, what are we defending? Because a peace deal violation doesn't have nothing to do with triggers of war. Like, this is confusing.
Yeah, that's why I had to read that. He said, I read verbatim what he said, so.
So I just did a quick Google search, and this is how the United States would profit. The U.S. government would secure the mineral rights, some contracts, as we know, and it says strategic access. I'm not sure what that means. But Trump would benefit because he would then operate mines. That's how he could benefit. Then there's an entity that helped facilitate the sale of the mining, that will help facilitate, I'm reading this just so you know, facilitate the proceeds from the mining assets. So that group would benefit. Of course, DRC, central government, and provinces would benefit through royalties, taxes, and infrastructure funding. Then supposedly local communities would benefit because there'd be development funds and service improvements. So that's who all would benefit.
Yeah, it'll help them get a train from one mine to another, so that they can work the shit out of the fucking population. That's how they would benefit. They can get to work.
That's true. Get that train up and running. And breaking news, in case you guys didn't know, I don't know how much of it is breaking news, but it is from today. Supreme Court upholds Texas age verification law for Pornhub and all these other sites. I don't know about any other sites. I know Pornhub, and you guys know the rest of them. But it says right here, the Supreme Court upheld a Texas law Friday that requires all adult websites to verify the age of their users. That is so corny. All I have to do is press, yeah, I'm over 18, and proceed on to the MILFs and the, That's dumb as hell. There should be
No, we need to know the other sections you search.
There should be a better way to control this, because too many young people are watching these, and it's really a problem, are watching porno. It's just really a problem. So there has to be a way that we can do this, or either do like the other country, and I think it was it France who is forbidding Pornhub to even operate in their country. There has to be a better way.
That's the only other way. They do the same thing with cannabis, right? Because they have multiple cannabis sites, and we have to do the same age verification bullshit, right? And everybody scrolls up, it hits yes, I'm over 18, and that's it. Because one's red, one's green. You don't even got to be able to read. You can just click the green one and go into the site. You know what I mean? So that's not going to stop anyone. The only alternative to that is kind of like those Verify Me sites, where you have to hold up your ID and take you a live video. And nobody's gonna do that to watch porno. Like, nobody's about to do that. So I don't think they have another options either. They let it happen this way, or nobody will do that. I would. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, that's breaking news. And if I have to hold my ID, those of us who are law-abiding citizens and don't have sex addictions, we don't mind doing that.
They don't know all your categories, Lisa.
They gonna hack the system. They gonna hack the system so they can see what Lisa looks like before she has them.
Oh, you can see what I look like before I signed up? What do you mean?
Yeah, once they hack the system, you send a live video.
Oh, that's okay. Y'all can see, like, now that I know they're gonna do that, I make sure I'm not completely, everything is beat. Then you can go, oh,
wear
okay,
a mask.
that's her. So, yeah, I can wear with those big, nice ones. Yeah, exactly.
Wear a Trump mask.
Hey, Lisa, I got an easier way to actually control this, but it's probably the least popular way. Parents should actually put parental controls on their kids' devices. Yeah, you can fix this if you actually parent your kids. But I know it's unpopular because the government, everybody wants the government to take control of their kids. Everybody wants the government to parent their kids, but I don't know.
I didn't have that problem because I put parental controls on my kids' devices while they're in my house, so they couldn't even look at them.
GA, let me tell you something. I had the same mindset as you, and I applaud it. So let me initiate it with that. But I want you to understand a couple things that I know you don't understand. They now have apps that are made to look like other apps, like a calculator, like just regular apps. And they are actually backdoor apps that allow you to access anything so the parent doesn't know. And you can't even see it until you put in the code. So the days of monitoring their phone and thinking those parental control apps work are gone. That's the easiest workaround in the world at this point. And these kids are very, very technology literate. So they know a lot about it. They grew up on it. You got to think about it. We encountered them midlife. They grew up on this. They are more well-versed on this than you. So they will work around that all day. There is no way, unless you're taking the phone or looking over their shoulder, that they cannot access the World Wide Web at their fingertips. It's impossible.
I gotta push back with that. I gotta push back with that.
I know y'all ain't talking over JD. I like you, Haitian, but don't do that.
No, don't let me fight. No, you Haitian. You got it, JD. I don't want to get beat up by Patty. You got it. No, Patty. It's okay. Haitian can cut me off any.
But I don't know why y'all stop being scared to talk because this is good. That was some good shit right there.
I'm playing Haitian. You know I love you. Not more than JD.
Yeah, I hope not. But anyway, there's 9 ways that you could protect and control what your kids are going to. Also see the website they're going to and get alerted if they go to certain websites. Look at the thing on Trend Micro, that device that you can add on it, the plans they have. So
it literally depends on if they know what apps to download. There's apps that avoid the new ones now, man. It avoids
I know what you're saying, bro, but it also lets you know if they try to download those apps. Right? No, but the real issue is how many devices do these kids have? You block their phone, okay, they're gonna use their iPad. I'm gonna tell you like this, right? So I'm gonna tell you like this. When my kids were younger, all the devices in my house that connected to the internet, all were named. You understand what I'm saying? So if someone had to come off the net, I would just click on that shit and freeze it. But also had different parameters, but they, 2 of them are the same age, and the other one was different age. Had different parameters based on what they were allowed to do. You understand what I'm saying? So it's better than not doing nothing or just using the bullshit that Apple gives you, because that's not really parental on Apple.
You know what I did? My son had got in trouble, and I asked him, like, did you want to get a whooping or do you want to have your phone taken for? He chose whooping, so I took a whooping. Yeah, I gave my kids whoopings growing up. What you talking about? I would if I had one of that age at that point. Absolutely. Nah, don't have that conversation with Lisa, please. Let me finish. So I asked him which one he'd rather. He said he'd rather the whooping. So I took his phone because I knew which one. I went the opposite because I knew exactly what he was thinking. Like, that's going to be a one and done and I'm good to go. So I took his phone and I kept it for the week. And then about midweek, I seen him downstairs in the dining room. He's supposed to be doing his homework, and I was in the room by the pool table, and I kind of looked around the corner. He couldn't see me. And he was doing something in his lap. I kept looking around. What you doing? He's messing in his lap. He couldn't see me. So I walked in the room real quick. Hey, what you got? And nothing. Doing my homework. Come here. Let me check one pocket. I checked the one pocket closest to me. Then when they checked the other pocket, he took off running for the steps. So I went and grabbed him. Some little girl then gave him a phone, and they got data and everything, and he's still doing everything he been doing. And you can't just stop them. Like they will find ways around what you're trying. Like you can parent, but they still find ways.
And Gemini, you know what? I give you credit. Hold on 1 second. I just want to respond to Gemini. Gemini, what you're saying is absolutely. I give you credit for that because my kids are 31, so it's easier to control my kids. I don't have young kids like that now. I mean, I do have a 14-year-old, but she could care less about the net. She doesn't care anything about it whatsoever.
Oh, you're blessed right there.
So she's about coding and stuff like that. So she could care less about that. But I will admit, you're right. There's things that exist now that did not exist when my kids were young. So you're correct. It was easier back in my day when my kids were young because I took my daughters all her electronics for a year. So yeah, it was easy.
You took her electronics?
A year.
Yes, for the entire school year.
It's crazy work.
For the entire school year. Yep.
She had access to her friends.
Oh yeah, that's straight child abuse. Okay, so
Good
I gotta kind of move us back to.
Let me say one thing real quick, G. I don't know if you have it signed up, but look at Black Girls Code. You go to.
Yeah, Black Girls Code.
And I just want to tell Lisa my feelings have been hurt because she didn't call us darkies about 1 million times this room. She like she didn't call us darkies.
Hey, but Gemini, I love you.
She is too dark for that. Don't be doing that, Lisa.
I love my.
No, there's something behind that, but go ahead.
Talking to Barry is sweeter, you know what?
Well, I'm just saying, there's a little inside joke behind that. I'm not doing it to be disrespectful, but there's an inside joke where I was being called darky because I was the darkest one where I was working at one point in time. But anyway, okay, so anybody else want to comment on that about Pornhub and Rwanda before we move back to talking about this ruling? Because I was going to let you listen to... I know you guys love arguing with each other, and it might be more fun, but Roland Martin had a little thing he wanted to say about it, which might be interesting, and maybe he'll speak in a language that you guys can understand a little bit better. What am I talking about? Just the way he breaks it down, though. And then another thing that's also on the menu, that goddamn Jeff Bezos paid $50 million for a wedding. That you know what you can do with $50 million, and they're not going to even be married for 10 years. I don't. $50 million on a wedding. I thought y'all were worried about. Well, who gives a fuck about the prenup? I thought you guys were worried about starvation, children, education, the world going to hell, and you spend $50 million on a wedding.
Get the same coochie you can get for 25 cents.
Same coochie you can get for $25.
Ain't that crazy that my bitch love me?
Launder that money somehow.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Okay, that's crazy.
He didn't work hard, but you know what though? I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at him. He said he done work hard to get to that point in life where he can do that. He didn't borrow it.
It's just the austerity of it.
It is ridiculous though. I ain't gonna lie.
That is ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
I would be embarrassed.
You have a bomb wedding for $1 million.
I wouldn't spend that money on her. You know what she did to freaking his wife? She went and she had her brother leak their text messages to ruin their marriage. Wow. Sanchez ain't shit. That chick ain't shit. I want to spend $50 million. And then she said, I didn't know how my brother got the messages. Her brother leaked all they fucking text messages.
Oh my God. What was in the text messages? Like, what was it?
I'd have to Google it. This shit was so many years ago.
Was she cheating though? Like she was cheating or something?
Bro, he was
having an affair with. So they were married. You got a woman that's working, allows you to buy some bullshit and keep it in your goddamn garage while you motherfucking selling it and holding the fucking family down so you can develop Amazon. She helped build fucking Amazon. She was working. He was selling shit out the garage, and then he go meet some raggedy ass Hispanic Sanchez chick. And he fucking around, and then she gives the messages to her brother, who fucking sends it to the fucking media, and then she finds out, and she gets an abortion. Like this is like I wouldn't spend $50 million on her ass. She got some
I shot dude.
Like
Go ahead.
flip on the clam.
Go ahead. I shot him. Go ahead.
She got some bomb pussy.
Her lips are all blown out. Her lips are all blown out like Flip on the Clown.
Whose vagina are you talking about? What's going on?
Who's got the gig?
Whose vagina? Where are you talking about?
Lauren Sanchez. That's her name. Lauren Sanchez.
Who is she?
For $25,000. That's the
$50 million pussy is crazy.
Wow. She went up in the thing with Katy Perry too? Or is that someone else?
I don't know these people.
Yeah, me.
You remember they were at some kind of party and they ran across somebody famous. I don't know, maybe it was Brad Pitt or somebody. And all her attention went to that other man. Don't y'all remember seeing that? I think it was last year. They were at some event, and somebody like him, shook his hand, and she was all over that dude.
So, okay, I'm not trying to cut this conversation off. Anybody want to add to this? Because they have officially renamed the USNS Harvey Milk. Well, I have all the military people in here. And then, which is really crazy, you guys have to really look into stuff. So I kept scrolling down to see if anything was different about what was going on. And then there was a quote here saying that we're returning, wait, let me go get it. Fuck, I hate when I do that. We're returning the military to because Harvey Milk was gay, right? So it says we're returning the military to the manly warrior days. I'm sorry. So they wiping off Harvey Milk's name off of the side of this ship so they can turn it back into the manly warrior days of the military. What does that mean? Y'all know what it means. That's what you. So that's what happened. It's been renamed. I can't find the name on here though. It is the.
That's kind of messed up though, because Harvey Milk was in the military, and the reason why they named it after him because of the stuff that he did.
Oh, here it is. Secretary John Phelan. He said that indicating ships' names would be reviewed with change to reestablish the warrior culture. Is that y'all not the warrior culture? If your ship's name Harvey Milk, Harry or Harvey or whatever his name was, that's crazy.
He was a warrior. He was in the military, so they named it after him.
Girl, they trying to we not They don't make you understand what's really going on. All right, so. Anybody want to comment on that before we keep going down the menu here? Anybody? Okay, so then also on the menu is Trump is talking about some bullshit that have to do with Iran. I gotta go back to that. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Hold on for a second.
While you find that, Lisa, I just want to give a quick update on that toddler in the airport that was slammed on the floor by a Belarus man.
When? What?
Yeah, in a Moscow airport, a Belarus man saw an Iranian child.
Oh my God, I've seen that. That was
I don't.
Oh my God.
It's the most deplorable video. And we have to talk
Can
about
you
it
put that in the
immediately.
chat so I can look at it?
Oh my God, that was so deplorable.
I'll pull it up.
You don't want to see it. You don't.
Really don't want to see it though, Lisa,
so I know
because it's
who to verbally assault.
Tears are coming from my eyes. Oh my God, yo. Thank you, Patty. Thank you. Oh, that shit made me cry, yo.
Yeah, it'll really make you cry. I'm for real.
The child's in stable condition, y'all. That's all I wanted to say.
Whose child is it?
It's an Iranian kid, and it's not like the mom left him alone. She just turned away for a second. It really hurt.
So
what do you expect?
Yeah, put that in the chat so I can look at it. I don't see it yet. When y'all put it in the chat, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
I ain't looking it up because I don't want to look at it.
All right, I have not seen it. I want to, not that I need to be seeing horrific shit, but I just want
I'll do something without the actual video, but
No,
you want to see the video.
All right.
Yeah.
Lisa, when you see that video, that shit gonna make you really sick. It's gonna really hurt you.
So, and he was arrested, right, and charged with attempted murder of an infant.
Yeah, immediately. He's being interrogated, prosecuted, he's detained.
Could you imagine, like, your kid getting fucking slammed and to the point that your baby is in the freaking hospital? Like, that shit is fucking sad. If you see that shit gonna make you tear.
Yeah, I think that we should not be wasting all of our money on these type of trials and just go ahead and just give them the firing squad.
No, somebody needs to slam that nigga on his motherfucking head. That's what needs to happen. And let him live.
That's so easy. A motherfucker needs to be tortured to death.
I agree.
For days.
No, and let him live with the torture.
That's what I'm saying, for days.
Torture, let him bleed out.
Yep.
And then in related, it's like juxtaposition, that's one extreme, but there's another instance, and I wonder if y'all saw this video already, where there was a kid's recital, right? An outdoor recital, and then this one kid was bullying another kid, right? Like passive aggressively, nothing serious, but still not nice, right? Something you gotta correct and address.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, the father gets up and spears him like Goldberg from WWE right there on the stage.
Well, goddamn. The bully's dad or the bullied's dad?
That was the boy that was getting bullied. But
well, his dad came flying through, huh?
This kid was not even 4 years old, 3 years old. Though everybody stopped everything and they jumped the dad. It was insane. It reminded me of this Belarus man. Like they're doing this on purpose. I don't know why.
Have you guys seen the Belarusian that played Coco Gauff for the French Open? How she screams and yells like a demon? Like, I'm telling you, these Belarusians have a fucking problem. I think all of them are crazy.
But it's deeper. It's about the Zionism, because he said they did a smash cut clip where they showed another Zionist say, it's not enough that we kill our enemies. You have to kill the children of the enemies. And that is...
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, their mindset is really...
Right, I'll go get that link. I'll be back.
Okay. Oh, that sounds... All of that is horrible. I didn't mean to go down such a morbid path.
I know, but I just had to say it in the baby's in stable condition, or the toddler, is in stable condition, and they say it's a miracle that if his head was a little bit different, like it could have been very different, which has happened, so thank God.
Okay.
Lisa, not to take away from that, but I read a story about a soldier whose son was born in the U.S. Now, I guess he's a grown man now, but if you're born, like he was born in Germany, all right? If you're born from a military member overseas, you're already a citizen. He's been deported to Jamaica for some reason. I don't know. I didn't get the whole story. I'm going to read up more on
And they need to deport Ted Cruz.
Yes, take him now. Canada don't want his ass, so let's send him to El Salvador.
I think we'll have more reverence in this room if we open with breaking news like Lisa normally does, and we don't let anybody steamroll this conversation or Bill, because, yeah, there's a lot coming out on the headlines. There's just a lot.
Do you have something right now before we move on? Because we always open with breaking news. You guys know that. We always open up the 420 with breaking for you guys to bring what you have, what's important to you, what's exciting to you, what's interesting to you. Break it, because we might not have seen it. Some of us have jobs. Some of us are on county assistance. Some of us are just broke and unmotivated Negroes.
It's forget, it's easy to forget because so much shit's going down. So it is important to bring up what means something to you, what's resonating with you.
With you, exactly. So once again, y'all jump in. I'm looking at a story about Como. We got stories about, we haven't even got into the birthright ruling because we've been everywhere. They're jumping in Crockett. Anybody know that they're going after Crockett again, and we know why. And then there's some news that Trump disrespected an African reporter. Does anybody know about that? I told you. Oh God, where is that story?
Hey Lisa.
Good news.
I just wanted to, no, it's not breaking. I just wanted to let you know I went down the rabbit hole looking at the Nebraska news and them crying about them losing their farm. I mean, they are going to end up selling them farms for pennies. And this one lady, she did an interview on her own. She said her and her husband are losing everything. They own a cattle ranch. They're losing everything because all of them Mexicans is gone. And then they showed the job listing, talking about they're gonna pay $11 an hour, and they're crying because no black people are applying for this job. Picking blueberries 7 days a week, $11 an hour for 10 hours a day, and they're mad because no black people have applied for this job. They honestly believe Trump when he said that the Mexicans are taking our job.
Are they advertising it to only black people? Is this like on? Is it?
No, it's not. But they literally thought, because Trump said the Mexicans was taking their jobs, that once the Mexicans was gone, the black people were gonna take them jobs.
Listen, it ain't even the white people gonna take that job like that. No, we're too soft. Nobody's gonna take those jobs.
Let Bill Gates buy that farm.
I don't want that.
And they all voted for Trump. They said 89% of the people in that town voted for Trump. And now they're all losing their shit.
Well, fuck them.
They fucked around and they found.
I would like to say that I finally survived and crossed through that state they call New York, and I am finally got to Philadelphia in the warm embrace. What's up?
It surprised me how quickly the assassination of lawmakers just gets erased from the news. So it was nice today to see that Biden came to the funeral of Melissa Wortman.
What happened to the guy who was arrested? We went on dark after we saw the crime in 420. We went on dark. Is he been arraigned? Has anything happened to this guy? What's anybody got an update on him before we move on from?
Well, the last I heard, he got charged with some. It was really dumb. Like they didn't charge him with first-degree murder because apparently it wasn't premeditated, even though he had a manifesto and he planned everything out. Somehow it wasn't premeditated. I don't know. I don't understand.
Was he white?
Yep.
He's close.
Oh my God! I don't think that's gonna work.
What does close mean? What is going on?
I know, Minnesota, we don't know what happened to that guy.
Moses, come here. Pull up, Moses.
Okay, so any other breaking news? Because someone in your room, someone either in the Politically Correct or in 420, I don't know if it was April, whoever said about they're trying to build a alligator Alcatraz. Y'all remember that story?
Oh, at the airport?
Yes. That's the, not the airport, they're using some parts of the Everglades is abandoned here.
Yes, I saw that.
That was a dumb too.
We think them to get locked up with the gators, huh? God damn.
You know how precious that ecosystem is? That is not something to be put in treasure.
Okay, she said it's been blocked.
It's actually not.
Hi, Alpha Barbie. Hi, Alpha Barbie. Welcome to 420, Alpha Barbie. Okay, so coalition group today sued Donald's administration over the plans to build a detention center in the Everglades that he has dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. This is your president. I swear. Y'all, come on, MAGA people. Y'all, please write down some of this shit and remember some of the dumbness that we have to listen to for the next 4 years. Alligator Alcatraz. They sued and it's been blocked. The massive detention center will blight one of the most iconic ecosystems in the world, says Elise Bennett, Florida and Caribbean director at the Center for Biological Diversity. It's a reckless attack on the Everglades, the lifeblood of Florida, risk of polluting sensitive waters and turning more endangered Florida panthers, that's nice, into roadkill. It makes no sense to build what's essentially a new development in the Everglades for any reason, but this reason is particularly despicable.
Lisa, you know what it was. She said ecological biodiversity. That's all Trump heard, and he said, oh, I don't know. Them gators is woke. We got to get rid of the gators. They're woke.
It's supposed to be federally protected, the area that they're doing it. And it's like, it's considered the wetlands. So I don't know how they got it bypassed through the NEPA or the ESA. So.
Not the DEI gators.
I don't know, Patty, but that was funny, the DEI gators. Okay, so, well, we cleared that up for you guys. It's been halted. Let's see what else. I wanted to find. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find the article about the Trump disrespecting the African reporter. Anybody see that? Has anyone saw that?
No, haven't heard of that yet.
Okay, I gotta try to pull it up. I got too many windows open.
He always disrespects me.
You talking about that peace deal that he did with Rwanda and Congo?
Yeah, oh, we've been arguing about that for 3 hours. Where you been? It's like
I wouldn't know.
People gonna meet me outside over that shit. It's like,
Oh,
what? It's been horrible, and we know why. Do you know why? You want to add something to it before I try to find this other article?
No.
Something that we don't know about it.
Let me check in with my friend Mimi. Mimi, did you want to say anything? I mean,
Yeah.
No, I'm at work just listening to you. Oh, okay. Just wanted to check on you, sis. Good to see you.
Girl,
Hey,
I
Stephanie.
might be in Cali. I might need to get my hair done.
What's up?
Yeah, Mimi. We're coming to support you.
Yeah, we
She did y'all's friend's hair. She did Kamala's hair.
Kamala?
Kamala.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, she did. Oh, that's awesome.
Have you
Don't
guys
do my
seen
hair like Kamala though. I don't.
Go lay down, Patty.
Give me about 10 years.
You just like a round.
I'm gonna lay down. First lady, you're putting us all on a nap. Everybody gonna take a nap.
Yes.
Have you seen the
I'll
video?
point you to your little cubby holes.
Okay,
I
thanks,
don't
lady.
like her
When you
hairstyle.
wake up, you get a snack.
Well, I mean, she for her age.
Yeah, for her age.
Yeah, for her age, it definitely fits. And I liked her low lights, or like her low lights that she got. It was nice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're nice. My grandma do her hair like that.
Good night, Patty.
She did when she.
Y'all want her to have a lace front or something?
I don't care about no lace fronts. I just need her to. I just want my hair straight. That's it. I don't want no curls, the little bumps. Oh, no.
I have one more headline when you're ready, Seth.
Well, okay, hold on. I found one of the black journalists, and I found out that this black journalist is really beautiful. I'm looking at her picture, and I don't know what the fuck he said to her. So let me play this. It says, I heard that he disrespected her. Now, I find this, of course, the New York Post is going to turn into some other dumb shit. Trump left in awe by beautiful reporter. Could be the end of my political career. What the fuck? I see her talking to him in the little clip. She's very beautiful. I think she's from the Congo. Like, we don't have very fucking beautiful people. Are you fucking surprised, Trump? Okay, so hold on. Let me play this. And then we can go back to fighting about some other stuff.
Trump ain't surprised. He's on the black one.
The number one food for regular media. Okay, let's see.
Not this way to figure out stuff by adding more flavor to your diet. Ay.
Well, I need to know about your birthday. Something else. I
holding? Go ahead, April, because I have
I need to know about them regular BMs because I'm on Manjaro, girl. You can't.
Oh my God! Thanks for that bit of information.
I know you're concerned for me. I know. I can feel it over you.
Sponsored by Dude Whites.
Yeah, I love Dude Whites. If y'all men don't have, that's one thing, ladies. From now on, when you go over some guy's house and he invites you to his restroom, or you ask to use the restroom, if he doesn't have Dude Whites visible, turn and run. Okay, so let me play this.
What are dude wipes? It means to wipe our balls?
Turn and run. No, okay.
We don't have these ones in the bathroom. What's going?
They're extra large baby wipes. Like
There's nothing wrong with Dude Whites.
Nobody said there was nothing wrong with dude wipes. I just asked what are dude wipes.
You can get your grass clean.
Amazon. While you're on your phone, go straight to Amazon.
Okay, so before dude wipes, I was one of them dudes. I would go wet toilet tissue, put soap on it.
But no, that crumble, what happens when you do that is you get crumbs all over yourself because it breaks
No,
down.
what you do, no, hold on, let me finish. When I'm finished, and then I use after I use the wet one, can I finish? After I use the wet one, then I'll use the dry one to wipe the residue.
All you gotta do is baby wipes, trash can in there so you don't trust that.
Are you coming out? Hello.
You can go on Amazon and you can pay like $400 and get this little attachment to your toilet called.
I don't want to spray toilet water up my ass.
Listen,
it's
all you gotta do is get some Clorox wipes, and that's all.
If you haven't had none in a long time, you can force the. Make the cream a little harder.
Your ass. Woo, child, I'm dying. I'm over having palpitations. I was putting this shit first. Get so so if I see too many things like Clorox wipes in your pictures on that side, but at least I know you clean on some kind of level. You might.
Clorox wipes is crazy.
Is that funny? Can you imagine wiping your ass with Clorox?
Bleach and help with COVID.
Oh, Remy did that.
That should burn. Well, can I ask, if you wipe it around your little pee-pee area, does it burn, fellas?
No. I can tell you this much though. I was taught.
He said no.
Can I finish?
Can
I finish? Can I finish?
I'm just.
I don't know. Can you?
I'm just share the same blood.
I think your laughter, I guess it's too
because I had a turtleneck. Because I had a turtleneck. So I was like,
what the fuck is this? I don't think you should have stopped being your turtleneck, sir.
It's not it.
It's a turtleneck back
in the neck. So I'm finishing. Women need education on men. So yeah, you know.
Oh, this is for Sunday.
Save that for Sunday, bruh.
So I had a turtleneck. So I was taught to pull it back. Every time I peed, I used to wash. I used to wipe. My father and my mother taught me that, but I cut it off though. A lot of females didn't want to give me head, so I cut it off.
What the hell? What time is it?
You scared of the market shit, bro. That's you were wilding today, boy. That wild.
What did I just hear?
Congratulations, though.
Stand up for that. What are you doing right now?
Hey, Dad.
My. What time is
I
it?
just threw up in my mouth and I swallowed it.
My face is hot. Stop, y'all.
You're out of pocket today. What are you listening to, a video or something?
Okay. All right. And it's all because of April. Jesus
Yeah, April saying dude wipes. That's crazy.
No, she's the one talking. Never mind. Let me not get started. Okay, so this is what happened in the White House. The woman is gorgeous. Trump, you know how he can't turn his head all the way? He has to turn his whole body. He literally turned his whole fucking head to see her. I ain't never seen his head turn completely to one side. She's standing next to him. She's gorgeous. If you guys can pull it up. She's, I mean.
She got the same haircut my grandma got.
I leave her alone. And this is, I don't want to say anything negative about the other African American females who cover the White House, but she is, okay, let me just try.
They know your name. They know that our president named President Trump is working hard to finally bring peace to the country. I saw they have hope now for a better day in Congo.
That's why
they see 1 year away as a better future for Congo. And I had an opportunity to sit down with President Tshisekedi for an interview because I want to understand his mind, what he's thinking, his feeling about everything that your administration is doing. And he told me firsthand that for many years, many American presidents overlooked this conflict. They didn't do nothing. Even myself, I covered I pressed many times about this conflict. People are dying.
And you know this girl. He's a liar.
That changed my mind. She ain't that cute.
He ain't pretty. He a liar.
I'm very thankful for what you're doing, for what your administration is doing. Not only him, the entire Congo, these people, they see that finally they'll have hope. And President Tshisekedi also made an interview that when peace finally comes to Democratic Republic of the Congo, he's thinking to nominate you as a Nobel Prize Peace because he said you deserve. You have been working to bring peace in the world, not only in the world. And he's very hopeful to meet you.
That's so beautifully stated. And Caroline said, number one, she did say, and I shouldn't say this because this is politically incorrect. She said, she's beautiful, and you are beautiful.
See? I just threw up in my mouth again.
That could be the end of my political correctness.
See? He said,
you're beautiful inside.
Look, y'all can see this shit. He's a little African. He look like you over there.
You trying to risk it all?
You about ready to give her some DEI shit.
You ain't seen the way he look at this black woman. He's like, if I go black, am I gonna go back? He said, this is the end of my political career. But that was ugly what she said. I'm not gonna hate on the sis, because sister is beautiful. And they told her, and that's what. Come on, Patty, stop hating. I'm not hating. Patty, this girl is gorgeous.
Use the blow dryer, and she blow dried it back.
And she did blow dry that head.
She got the highest standards.
She can't come
blow
to
dried
that.
Yeah, my grandma
she blew out. Okay, but they warned him before she got there that she was beautiful.
Yep, Gemini, that's that Oprah grandma stuff.
Anybody checking out for Oprah?
Okay,
that's
so
the
that's
ladies that went.
Blow on a roller set. What's wrong with a blow on a roller set?
Nothing wrong with it once you're over 45.
Not over 40. Okay, she said.
Over 68.
Trump
Okay, you
said,
right, maybe 68, because my grandma still had cute hairstyles around 45. I think it's pretty.
Okay, come on, you guys, leave this lady alone. Trump said, I shouldn't say this because it's politically incorrect. Then he took a breath. She's beautiful. And Trump said, I'm not allowed to say that, It could be the end of my political career.
He's right. The MAGAs ain't gonna let
them white supremacists said, the fuck?
The MAGAs are not like that.
Correct? The first time ever?
She's absolutely correct. She said she praised his ass. That's why I was like, ew.
I would die.
Yeah.
The F-bomb he drops, all the other asinine things he says, I guess those are all completely correct.
And she lied. She lied. Biden was the one that stopped the funding towards the Rwanda militaries because of the children's soldiers. Biden was the one that did the negotiations back and forth. Well, it wasn't Biden, it was Anthony Blinken under the Biden administration. So, she's a fucking liar. And it was, and shout out to Mark Rubio, but Mark Rubio also assisted too, and so did the ambassadors. So she's a fucking liar. He did a lot. They did a lot.
Definitely.
I thought it was lipstick, but it's the orange ring. I'll take.
And y'all should read some of these comments from these MAGAs, man. There's she can speak intelligently and she's smart. Okay?
Oh, because niggas can?
Nope, not at all.
They was like, oh, that's the smart Sophie.
You know what? I act a little.
And then one lady said, it's nice to see a black woman in shape. I'm tired of the unhealthy obesity. This is crazy.
I'm gonna start working, y'all, because I'm in shape and I can talk intelligent when I feel like it. When I'm at work, I don't talk like this. So I promise you, I'm about to go grift and make some money off of fucking Trump. I'm gonna kiss his ass. Y'all can sit on stage and say, Patty's beautiful. beautiful.
All you gotta do is.
What are you doing?
Hey everybody, happy Friday. I hate to interrupt such an engaging conversation. It sounds so interesting. I hope you all have a fun Friday night.
All you gotta do is stroke Trump's ego. He's gonna do whatever you do.
Wait a minute, Patty.
You drink energy drinks? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. What's your favorite energy drink?
100.
Is it highly caffeinated?
Bitch, we know information. We not dummies. If we wear a bathing suit as a PTR, we still know how to fucking talk.
You can't handle the feedback. Can you read the title of the room?
Bathing suit as a PTR.
Brings this room to life.
Right.
Oh my God, these two nice. Okay, so let's see what else. Anybody else have breaking news? Because I'm just about done.
Bring up the positive vibration.
Talk about this birthright ruling, or let Roland Martin tell you guys something about it. But let me check one more thing. Anybody else have breaking news?
Last time I spoke to you, I had to carry you when I called the TV game.
I got you on one more.
Oh yeah, that's right, Water. You're supposed to be coming through. Okay, gotcha.
It says, on June 26th, Israeli settlers attacked the West Bank villages of Kafir Malik, Palestinian, and Taibeh, a Christian majority-owned town in East Ramallah. The attackers set fire to cars, homes, leading to 3 confirmed deaths in Taibeh. Wait a minute. Okay, I thought there was more injuries, but there was just only 3 confirmed deaths. But yeah, there was basically a Christian village in Gaza, in Palestine, attacked.
So I do have some breaking news. I don't know how important it is to y'all, but the Supreme Court maintained the Obamacare pillar that has to do with HIV. So I don't know why MAGA would try to block medication that allows people to live or allows people to like have some type of sexual activity without with less a chance of catching HIV, but they tried to fucking block that shit. I don't know if they're trying to kill us off. I don't know what's going on. 6-3 decision. It was Kennedy versus Braidwood Management.
And it also says Taipei is known as the last entirely Christian town in the West Bank. So that's it. A local priest described daily life as under fire, barbarism,
Did he just stop what you were saying?
brutality,
Start talking about what he wanted to talk about? Is that?
Yeah, let him go. Let him go.
What was it?
He not talking about the French, so.
No, I ain't talking about the French.
I know. I give him grace. It's the drugs. I get it.
But can you believe they tried to block PrEP? MAGA wanted to get rid of PrEP.
Of course they do. Come on, they're trying to get rid of something else I was reading, but I don't remember something else.
This shit is crazy.
You mean with the AIDS PrEP?
Yeah, so like, do we want to go back to 1980s? Like, come on.
I think that's what they want.
This is crazy. Like, T cells to drop.
Yeah, they want that.
This is crazy. Why in the fuck do we have to go to Supreme Court to freaking like maintain a pillar?
What was their reason behind
To
it?
just maintain. Why do we have to go to the Supreme Court to maintain? That's right.
What was the purpose behind it?
It was Kennedy.
Black men. Gay people, period. I think that's I'm asking, what was their reasoning for trying to stop it? Is what I'm trying to understand. Did they give a reason or?
So they didn't really. So it was under Robert F. Kennedy, under with his position as Secretary of Health. So I'm gonna have to read it, the main document. But let me see, because they always have a quote unquote preface. So this shit long. So it says, submit this brief to explain that the Patent Protection Affordable Care Act provisions that guarantee patients access to cost-free coverage for preventive care measures recommended by the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force are both lawful and critically important for public health. This court's... No, wait. Let me see. Summary of arguments. The parties to this case debate the wrong question, whether members of U.S. Preventive Service Task Force are inferior or principal officers of the United States with meaning of appointment clause. Under this court's precedent... Shit, I'm gonna have to read this, y'all. We'll talk about it tomorrow night. But I do know for a fact that it got blocked, and that's actually in the news. And it was about PrEP. Who the fuck wants to block PrEP? It's fucking crazy.
People who think that only Christian married couples should have sex, that's it.
Yeah, but PrEP is still just as good for people that are not.
You and I know that. You and I know that, right? But they don't know that. Or they don't care.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I that's a little. I have to go. I have so many windows open. I can't even go and get that one together right now. Just before I close, the AP. They're trying to get rid of Fetterman. You know, they've had enough. They're really trying to get rid of him. They're trying to wait. What was the article? You know, he's having some difficulties. He's wandering around in the Capitol, not knowing where he is. He's now starting to say the dumbest, craziest shit, and he's supporting a lot of shit that Donald Trump is doing. So they said they have to figure out what to do about Fetterman, who's under fire from rank and file Democrats for being willing to cooperate with Trump and criticizing how Democrats have protested him. I don't know what happened to him. You think he fell down again and bumped his head? Because he's been acting up for a while. They don't understand what they say while he's, quote, kissing up to Trump and chastising fellow Democrats for their anti-Trump resistance and whether he's even committed to their causes at all. That's what they're saying. They're trying to get rid of him. I don't know if they're trying to... Are they going to... Is he up for re-election? No, he's not. Wow.
Who are you talking about, Lisa?
Fetterman. They're trying to get rid of John Fetterman.
Oh yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Why isn't it, see?
Because he's Pennsylvania, so he represents Pennsylvania values really well. And Pennsylvania's a battleground state. Yeah, Pennsylvania's a battleground state, so he's right. You know, he's left of center. So yeah, he's right where he needs to be doing a good job for Pennsylvania.
It says right here that the progressives are frustrated with Fetterman.
Oh, of course they're progressive. If the progressives were happy with him, he would not get reelected.
So they have asked him to resign.
Okay. and he can take the request and flush it down the toilet.
All right. So he's another sellout in the Democratic Party.
No, he's running. No, he is governing as he ran. There is no difference between how he campaigned and how he is now. None. They got what they elected.
Okay, so him wandering around the Capitol confused and not knowing where he is and walking in front of
No, that's different. I'm talking about his politics, not confusion. Okay, well that's a different topic.
Okay, so let's blend it together. He needs to go because he's not helping, he's hurting, and then we don't even know if he's in his right mind. Let's use the same argument they used for Biden. You know, let's get him out of here. He's not competent.
So you can have a Republican senator from the great state of Pennsylvania?
And you think that's what's gonna happen?
Yeah, I mean, because which way did Pennsylvania vote last time? Like I said, it's a battleground state. It's very tight. All the elections are very close.
Anybody want to add or subtract to that? Because I was just bringing it to you guys' attention what was going on with Fetterman.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting watching the House of Cards just topple.
Okay, and then one more before we go.
I'm sorry.
Go
I just wanted to add that he's been criticized, very critical of the Democrats. I definitely know that he broke away from the party on certain things, but I didn't really follow Pennsylvania like that. But I did check in and chime in because I think that he is running contrary to the policies that he campaigned on, and so that's why people are stunned. Yeah, I agree. But I don't think that a Republican will win. So you remember he ran against Connor Lamb, and Connor Lamb, like, it was like really. I think Connor would win because there's a lot of. There's a lot of people like, damn, we should have fucking just let him win. So I think Connor would win. You can say that.
Who cares? It's a clown parade.
What happened in the last election? I don't think that's gonna happen.
Connor's more to the right than Fetterman, though.
Not the new Fetterman.
I don't know. I think you would end up right about where you are with Lamb. And then
Lamb
also,
is not the Fetterman that we have right now.
And then Fetterman's voted with the Dems 90% of the time, by the way. Yeah. That's a pretty high percentage.
But what he's doing now is crazy. He hasn't been voting with the Dems recently. So you gotta stop that, CEO. You're talking about past. We're talking about the new guy after the fucking stroke.
Yeah, I